Hey everybody,
Hey.
we're about to go live. Hope you enjoy today's show. Should be interesting and
It'll be fun.
it'll be fun. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Well, fun to us.
well we're nerds, so this stuff is fun. So at least to us. Here's the opening warnings and all of that sort of stuff.
Financial and legal needs. This is a live call-in program featuring John Ross and Lisa Schulmeyer, elder law attorneys and senior advocates for the ARC Latex.
Hope you enjoy today's show.
Is dedicated to helping you navigate the challenges and blessing of growing older. So call in and ask your questions. The number is 903-793-1071. Now here are your hosts,
Let's do this.
John Ross and Lisa Schulmeyer.
Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here live in the studio. And we are ready to go as soon as Lisa stops messing around with the buttons.
Sorry. Yeah,
that's all right. All right, so you're listening to Aging Insight, the absolute best, number one, without a doubt, undisputed champion.
Unique and only.
Of the world. Program related to your health, housing, financial, and legal needs. This is Aging Insight with your very own hosts, elder law attorney extraordinaires, John Ross and Lisa Schulmeyer.
That's right. So we come to you on Saturdays. Hopefully we can inform and maybe even entertain from time to time. Hopefully we don't bury you in, nerd trivia, which we could do.
We could. Well, you could, for sure.
But we come every Saturday, and if you're listening on the radio or if you're watching on Facebook Live, then you are getting this information for absolutely no charge. You don't pay a thing for it. You don't pay a thing for our time to be in the studio here on a Saturday, live here to answer your questions and look at your comments and give you some feedback. Because, John, radio is free.
That's right. It's free
to the listener.
To the listener. That's right.
So I always want to take a moment to give a special thanks to the sponsors that make it possible, because the electricity and the electronics and all this and the towers that runs radio is not free.
That's right. And so we always like to give a shout out to Dirksen Memorial Hospice, Red River Federal Credit Union, Texarkana Funeral Home, Edgewood Manor, Cowhorn Creek Estates, Heritage Plaza, and Reunion Plaza.
And the Barnett Agency.
And of course the Barnett Agency.
Yeah.
That's right. And for those of y'all who are on Facebook Live, and if you're not, get on there. Come on, man.
That way you can see us make radio.
That's right. You can see what all kinds of cool T-shirts we wear every time we get on here. But yeah, so you get on Facebook Live. If you go over into the title section, you can see the links to all the Facebook pages for all of those sponsors, and would be pretty cool if maybe you'd click on one of them and give them a shout out to say, hey, thanks for sponsoring. That helps keep us on the radio. So if you like the program, do us that little favor. And of course, if you're on Facebook, you can share it with your friends and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And John, just want to give a special thanks to a client who was supposed to come into the office this week, but due to illness in the family and all, and they're a caregiver and they had to cancel, but they were so sorry they had to cancel, but they did leave a message that he appreciates listening to the radio show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I haven't met him yet, but we appreciate you letting us know that you listen.
Yeah, no, that's right. And we have lots of listeners out there, and some of them have come in and met with us personally. And so always good stuff. And of course, just this last week, we did our law school lunch over at the Texarkana Convention Center. Sold out crowd.
Yeah, and because it's there is lunch provided.
There's lunch provided, and there's a limited number of seats. Now, that limited number was 150.
Yeah.
And we had to turn away dozens.
Right.
So when we do that again, and it comes around every 2 months?
Yeah, every 2 months.
Yeah, about every 2 months. And so when it comes around again, if you want to participate, you got to get on there and sign up, or give our office a call and sign up in advance to make sure you get a seat, because we hate having to turn away anybody.
Yeah, but we also don't want to have somebody show up expecting a lunch and not get one.
That's right.
So we can only take so many. So next time we have that it's Aging in Sight. What it is it's Aging in Sight Live, kind of.
Yeah, that's right.
We call it law school lunch because, hey, you're getting a lunch and you're getting some information just like a law student would get sitting in an intro class to estate planning. And John, this last program, and it was so popular, was actually how to write your own will.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And so
something we've talked about on the show before.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know what I have going on this week. What about you?
Well, let's see. I've got looks like I'm going to be speaking to the Human Resource Management organization over at Texarkana College. So if you're a part of that, I'll see you. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then if you're a Kiwanis of Texarkana member, the one that meets over at Williams Memorial, I'll see y'all at lunch over there on Wednesday. So
okay.
And then we will be out next weekend.
Yes, we will be out. So if you're listening or watching,
Yep, it's going to be a rerun next week.
But we make it most Saturdays.
That's right. We do our best, but you'll get a rerun next weekend. So you have to pay attention to today, and of course, if there is something that you catch here, or you want to go back and look at it, because we do these on Facebook Live, you can always go to the Ross and Schollmeyer Facebook page, go into the video section, and you can see all of the prior videos. You can watch those or rewatch those if there was some little tidbit of knowledge that you just wanted a refresher on.
Right. And if you miss us that much, then next week you can go into Facebook and we can all, you can pretend like it's live.
That's right.
But anyway.
That's right.
Well, John, today we always come into Saturday with so much preparation.
Oh, that's right.
But
hours and hours of preparation.
But typically something comes up during the work week that kind of triggers something that we say, oh, we should talk about that on Aging in Sight on Saturday.
Yep.
And of course, this week was no different. So, we've one of the benefits of meeting with so many families is, everybody's situation that, just like our disclaimer says, everyone's situation is unique. And so we get to kind of get a bird's eye view of the choices and the circumstances of all these different families that come in to visit with us. And so sometimes, John, we see some common mistakes or missteps, if you will.
Yeah.
We'll call it a misstep.
How about that?
Okay.
That sounds nicer.
It does sound nicer. We see some common missteps that families make. And so we thought today on Aging in Sight that we would talk about some things you should avoid doing in order to live happily ever after in your retirement years. How's that?
That's right. And all of this kind of came around. Lisa and I were having lunch over at Subby's. Was, I guess, yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday. See, that's how much preparation we put into this. But yes, lunch on Friday.
Yeah, and Lisa was reading me an article written by an ER doctor. And it was basically, from his, decades of experience in the ER, it was a list of things to just not do.
Yeah, it was like 37 things to not do so you avoid seeing me in the ER.
That's right.
And some of them were hilarious.
Yeah, they were. I mean, some of them were pretty funny.
Yeah, don't try to start a chainsaw by holding it between your legs.
That's right.
That was one of them.
Yes. Yeah. And some of them were actually were pretty colorful as well.
Yes. Maybe not safe for radio.
Probably not safe for radio, but they were funny.
But this list was a bit inspiring because, this ER doctor, it was a little tongue in cheek, but he was making a list of some very obvious things that he has seen where people come into the ER injured. And so I thought, hey, we need to talk about a list of things that are a bit obvious that as a retiree or a near retiree, you should avoid to, have a calm,
if you want to
enjoyable
that's
retirement.
Right. If you want to come see us to do some pre-planning to get everything in order, those are the kind of appointments we like.
Yeah.
If you're coming in because there's a problem, we can probably solve it. We've probably dealt with it before. but you don't want to be coming to see us with your problems. You want to be coming to see us to avoid problems.
So our program today, let's talk about some problems to avoid so you don't have to come talk to us about them. So
Yes.
John, let's start. What you got?
All right, I'm in no particular order here, so this is not like a top 10 list.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's just
it's
things.
just whatever we come up with. But I'll tell you one that I would say is pretty universal. Don't loan anybody any money.
Yeah, just say no. There's, do what Nancy Reagan said about drugs in the 80s and just say no. John, I can't tell you how many times I've had grandma in the office and granddaughter wanted to go back to nursing school and get her RN and she just needed some money, or that grandchild whose car is not reliable and they want grandma to co-sign on the loan. If you are a retiree and it matters to you that the person you're loaning the money to or co-signing for pays it back, if that matters financially to you
or emotionally,
that's right. Because if you get mad that they didn't do what they said, just don't loan the money.
That's right. There's really, and so particularly within a family, let me just be perfectly clear. There is no such thing as a loan among family members.
Yeah, it's a gift.
There are gifts.
Sometimes those gifts are re-gifted back.
That's right.
But most of the time they are not.
No. So there are certainly no gifts among family. And even in other contexts, I visited with somebody this week who has a couple of properties, and this particular gentleman asked me what I thought about self-financing the property. He's got somebody that wants to buy it.
He wants to do a contract for deed.
Yeah, and they want to try to buy it or something like that. And it's the way I explained it to him. I said, look, okay, you have banks who are in the business of loaning people money.
And they make money doing it. So they really do want to give loans.
They really do. And if they're in the business of loaning money and they won't loan money to this person, then what in the world makes you think you're in a better position to second guess the bank on this issue?
Well, and then if the person doesn't pay, the bank already has lawyers to deal with that.
That's right.
But you don't.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to go hire a lawyer to try to foreclose or send demand letters, and that's going to cost you more money. So,
and particularly with something like that, back in the housing crisis in the 2008 timeframe, there was a lot of very ugly foreclosures going on by some of the big banks out there. And as a result of that, there are some relatively tight laws related to foreclosure and what you have to do, or what the banks have to do in order to do this right and protect the rights of the borrowers. The problem is that all of those apply to you as well, but you don't know them.
Right.
Which means you're going to mess it up.
You're going to mess it up, and the person's going to keep the house, and you're not going to get it back. And so it's a bad idea. So don't loan money in any form. That means co-sign. That means actually give the money. That means, be the bank and seller finance. And John, the loan issue, I think where the seniors struggle the most is when they have a child or a grandchild who maybe is going through a divorce.
Sure.
Or a criminal entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to pay the lawyer. I met with a lady this week, and she is out of cash because her son has had a protracted child custody dispute in his divorce.
Uh-huh.
And grandma has financed this dispute.
And so it's caused her to go broke.
It's caused her to go broke. They're no closer to getting the custody arrangement that her son wants. And she's broke, and she's trying to take care of her husband who has dementia and Alzheimer's. So, she's asked the son to pay her back. But of course, he's like, well, I'm in the middle of all this too, and I don't have the money. So now we're in a big problem.
That's right.
So,
of course, if you're Jeff Bezos and you're a billionaire and you want to give a little bit of your money to somebody, that's fine. Who cares?
Yeah. If you can afford it, have at it.
But just understand that there are no loans.
Yeah.
It's a gift. and you might have it gifted back. Not really, probably, but it's always a possibility.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll keep talking about some of these, so stick around. Yeah, so take our little radio break here for some news. Yeah, I know the loan stuff, and you know, with the student loans particularly, signing off as a guarantor on a student loan is never ever ever a good idea, particularly as a retiree. You know, for the most part, you're going to rely on your Social Security benefit.
Social Security for most people is a big part of their retirement income.
That's right. And even if you rack up a bunch of credit card debt, you rack up a bunch of medical bills, whatever debts that you have out there, those creditors cannot touch your Social Security. You're still going to get that lifeline coming in. There are only 3 creditors that can get to a Social Security check. That's unpaid unpaid child support.
Mm-hmm.
They can get to it. The IRS, they can get to it, and the student loans. And so if you have guaranteed that student loan and the student doesn't pay it, they don't even have to go after the student first.
Yes, that's right. So you're usually easier to find because you've probably been in the same home, the same address for many years. And so if you're the creditor, you look for the easy pickings. You don't try real hard to find the person who is, you know, moved around or is roommates with somebody. They're not even, you know, on an address or a lease. So yeah, don't co-sign anything.
That's right. Now, for any of y'all who are watching today or watching at a future episode, future rewatching this or something like that, if you've got any of your own little tidbits of advice that you'd like to share, feel free to just drop those down in the comments.
Yes.
And I'd be interested to hear what advice you have, because we're certainly not going to be able to cover everything in our little 45-minute show here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I would say, John, that the loan money issue probably comes up more than anything else for, you know, a lot of these things. But, you know, so often that senior who's always paid their bills, always taken care of things, always been responsible, you know, maybe they've loaned money to a child. They don't understand how come it hasn't come back. I had one lady want to write into her will that her other child should figure out how much had not been paid back
and deduct
it from their brother's share of the estate, which number one is impossible to do, first of all. And number two, well, all they're doing is shifting that bad relationship to the child, to the quote good child, you know, who's going to be executor. So, you know, I just told her, you know, forget about it.
Yeah, you know, in that case, instead of just deducting the share, you know, in the will, just go ahead and make a gift to the other kid,
right?
And even it all up and be done with it. All right, here we go.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Aging in Sight. I'm Lisa Scholmeyer here with John Ross, and today we're talking about just a list, a random list of missteps.
Yeah, just don't do this stuff.
Just don't do it.
If you don't want to come and see us because you have a problem that you need fixing, then you can start out by not doing these things.
Okay, so first of all, we covered don't loan money in any form, co-sign, you know, finance, give money, just don't do it.
That's right.
Okay. So number 2, don't let the kids move back in.
That's right.
You know,
we've done a whole episode on this before.
Yeah. And in fact, I've had a set of clients that actually they let their son move back in because he was going through a divorce and they thought it was going to be a temporary deal. Turned out that son enjoyed not paying bills.
Shocking.
30 plus years old.
Yeah, or better. I've had them 50.
I've had them 40, 50. Enjoys not paying bills, enjoys having the pantry and fridge full by someone else's efforts. And basically, this particular son that I'm talking about did work.
Mm-hmm.
But he spent his money on what he wanted to spend it on. But made mom and dad's life miserable. And you have to go through a formal legal eviction process to get a child out of the house. And that's very emotionally difficult. There was a big national news story about a year ago.
Yeah,
but that's when we did the whole episode about a couple who evicted their son from their home, and it made national news. But when you let the kids move in, there's just so many opportunities for misunderstandings of everyone's responsibilities. Often the parents have expectations that were even unstated.
Right.
But then they get aggravated and resentful of the child because the adult child's not doing what the parent thinks they should be doing, and nobody's ever said anything. It is a stew of rottenness.
Yes, it's awful.
And so
yeah, I mean, just and really the main advice is don't do it. Just don't let them move back in. You frankly you'd be better off saying, hey, I tell you what, you go rent you an apartment, and if you can afford it, maybe you can help them purchase some basic furniture. You could even say, hey, I'll help you pay the rent.
Deposit the first month's rent or something.
Yeah, a couple of months rent or something like that. But that way, if they decide that they're going to spend their time playing Xbox games and not going out and getting a job to support themselves, or they don't want to use their own money to support themselves, it'll be the apartment's problem to evict them when that rent doesn't get paid.
Right.
It's a whole lot easier for you to just say, you know what, we're not going to give you any more money, so you need to figure this out, than it is for you to go through the entire eviction process to get your own child out of the house.
Yeah, and I've even had parents who basically have been prisoners essentially in their own homes, just walking on eggshells due to adult children who were threatening and ugly to the parent whenever the parent did discuss, taking on some responsibilities around the home, or even that the child should be moving out. So, sometimes, John, we're a little jaded because we see the problems.
That's right.
I know that I have spoken with clients that have had a child or a grandchild move in with them, and they said it's just been wonderful, and that child's been so helpful, and
sure,
and
it can happen.
But just don't do it automatically. If you kind of have a feeling that your child is sort of a deadbeat, they are.
Right.
and wait, let me just say, I'm getting on my soapbox now. If that child always seems to have a run of bad luck, the boss at their job just didn't like them and fired them, and they can't get a job, and their cars broke down, and it just goes on and on. They never have anything good happen.
Right.
Sometimes it's because of choices that they make.
Yeah, the old saying of, if the only common thing in all of your failed problems and issues out there is you, then we have identified the problem.
Yeah. And it's just because I love my seniors so much, and I hate to see them taken advantage of. And it's just hard on everybody when that person taking advantage is the adult child.
That's right.
Of the parent, and they're so torn. So just don't put yourself in that situation.
That's right.
Into rant.
So don't loan anybody money. Don't let the kids move in. Now, we've got a bunch of others. We've got to take our bottom of the hour news break. So for our radio listeners, y'all just hold tight and until after the commercials and the news. For our Facebook people, we'll still be live. So the rest of y'all, we'll see you in a second. Yeah, don't let the kids move in. That's a bad idea. Always.
Yeah, because what happens when they move in, even if they are in a bad situation, going through a divorce, lost a job, when you're just trying to provide a little soft landing for them, oftentimes they get real comfortable. They're not saving up their money for that deposit on their apartment.
Right.
They're spending their money on their new iPhones and, going out or whatever. So it just gets real comfortable real fast for those adult children who've moved back home. And
some of y'all are going to ignore our advice. on
Yes, you are.
all of these issues. So if you're going to ignore our advice on the letting them move in, I would suggest lining out what your expectations are
And
on the front end.
yes, and I know this sounds, I've had families, I say a written lease agreement and
Absolutely.
expectations. And often if the child balks at a written lease agreement because they're like, oh, I cannot believe you would have me sign this when I am your child.
It's going to be a problem.
That's because they are already anticipating that they're going to be taking way advantage of you, and they have no intention of doing anything. People will say a lot of things when they're in a bad spot, but as soon as they're out of that bad spot, they don't follow through with their promises.
That's right.
So
and when they know that, those are the ones that get offended by you trying to line it out on the front end. So you can often determine a lot just by asking, by lining out those expectations and asking them to sign off on that written lease agreement that says how much they're going to contribute, the cost of the rent, food, utilities, whatever the deal is.
If the child has said, hey, I just need I'm going to find me an apartment, blah blah blah, well, maybe you make it a 90-day lease.
Yeah.
If they're telling you they intend to move out quickly, that this is just a little transition period, then do a 90-day or a 6-month lease. That way, at the end of the lease, you have a legal right to just end it, and then they're a holdover tenant, and it's much easier to evict in that situation. But I mean, if it works out beautifully, you can always just renew the lease.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with paper, and it's kind of like what I've heard you say several times as it relates to a prenup. If you're going to get married, ask for a prenup. If the person agrees to it without any problem, you probably don't really need the prenup.
That's right.
But if they freak out, however they have freaked out as it relates to that prenup is exactly why you need the prenup, because it's going to end, and it's going to end ugly, and you're just getting a little taste right here on the front end of what that's going to look like.
Yep, exactly. So, I've even had clients, John, on the letting the kids move in. I've had clients where the seniors moved out.
Yeah.
Where they left their house with their adult child and they moved into like independent retirement living because it was so dramatic and so traumatic at the house that they left. They stopped paying the utility bills and such. And I had one situation where the adult son continued to live in the house even when the electricity was cut off. And then, basically turned it into a party den and trashed the place. But mom and dad said, we're too old. We can't take all this, upheaval. And they actually moved into, I think it was Calhoun Creek, one of our sponsors.
Yeah, just to get away.
And that's pretty dramatic. That's a drastic step.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad. I think we've got about, maybe 30 seconds left?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like we got about 30 seconds left, and then we'll be back on the radio with some more don't do's.
Yeah, and all these don't do's are because we have dealt with real people who have done them, and it's a disaster.
All right, so we got 10 seconds. And like I said, if y'all that are watching, y'all have any of your own, feel free to throw them in the comments. I'd be more than happy to hear what you think people should not do in their retirement. So, all right, here we go. Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here in the studio with Lisa Schulmeyer. And on today's program, we're talking about things that we don't want you to do based on our combined 40 years of experience dealing with this stuff. We've seen a bunch, and you start seeing the same things over and over of people saying, geez, can you help me with this problem I have gotten myself into? And we don't want you to do that.
Okay. So
how about this? don't buy a timeshare.
Yeah. Now, compared to the heftiness of the other things we just talked about, the loans and let the kids move in, maybe the don't buy a timeshare it buy seems a little lighter, but it is a financial albatross.
It is.
It is a boondoggle. It is, if you go to places where timeshares are popular, such as Branson, Missouri, Hot Springs, Arkansas,
Destin, Florida.
Orlando, and they promise you cash money or free night stay in a nice resort, whatever, to as long as you come and sit through that timeshare presentation. These folks are not just wanting to give the Miller family from Genoa a nice vacation.
Right.
That's not what they're in the business of doing. They're in the business of selling that family a permanent, forever and ever timeshare obligation.
That's right. This will cost money forever, and that's forever. And here's one. I mean, I've heard a lot. I've had this conversation so many times. I had it this week again. You'll often hear, well, we got a lot of use out of it. We did enjoy it.
Yeah, for years we enjoyed it. I had a family that had one in Hot Springs, and the kids, the family, the grandkids, they really enjoyed it. But the owners of that timeshare got up in age. The timeshare had a lot of steps down from the building to the dock to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
They just got really too old to enjoy that timeshare. But every year, those timeshare community fees, those maintenance fees,
it's always the maintenance fees. That stuff just never ends.
And if they promise you in the presentation that you think that you're immune to it, well, once again, they know better. They know that everybody walking into a presentation who was promised a free weekend, that everyone walking into that presentation says, there's no way I'm walking out of here buying anything.
That's right.
But they know, they've got the numbers. They've been doing it for years and decades.
Yeah.
They know how many people in that room are likely to go ahead and buy that timeshare. And you may not be as immune as you think. And you might be the one, or, one of several. But so you're stuck. And they're going to tell you, there's a market. You could sell it.
Yeah.
You could trade. There is not.
There is no secondary market. That you will not be able to sell it. Nobody else wants it. And you do not have the technique for high pressure sale to convince some other sucker to get it.
Right. To buy it off your hands.
So even if you enjoy it, even if it sounds like a great deal and something that you will use, you're thinking in the present. Yes, you may use it right now. And you're 65 and you like to travel and you like to go to Branson and you're going to do that several times a year. And this makes economic sense to you. It may, and you may use it for 5 years. You may use it for 10 years, but you will eventually stop using it. Either your health is going to decline.
You found other hobbies or interests that take you away, or you just, the timing's not going to work because, now your grandson's playing baseball during your week that you would have to go use your timeshare.
That's right. So if you like going to Branson, my co-host on the Big Picture Retirement podcast, Devin Carroll, he had bought a condo. He and his family really like to go to Branson. And so they had bought a condo in Branson. And it's probably been 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, because we've been to it.
Yeah, because we even used it one time, and he actually rents it out quite a bit with Airbnb. He's actually made money off of that deal, but he's since now bought some more properties up there in Branson, some bigger log cabin that because their family's getting bigger, and so they've moved up.
Right.
But the reason I mention this is. Last week, he put that condo up for sale. It sold in 24 hours.
Wow, I didn't know that.
For what for the asking price.
Yeah. So if you really love a place, buy something there. If you can afford it. If you can't afford to buy, a timeshare is not the right financial choice. there's always a Holiday Inn in that location, or a VRBO or Airbnb, that you will have a place to stay if you want to go back to that location and enjoy it. So don't buy the timeshare.
Yeah, and with the short-term rental market, the Airbnb and the vacation rental by owner, VRBO, these have become much more economical tools for going on vacations, particularly in vacation spots, Hot Springs, Branson, Destin. Lisa and I have basically gotten to the point now where basically everywhere we go, we're staying in Airbnbs. I just got back from San Francisco and rented a house up there, and it's very reasonable. So there's lots of other ways to travel. The timeshare is a bad idea. You're gonna want, and people they come to us because we're the lawyers, right? We solve problems. This is one of those problems I can't solve.
Right. I mean, the paperwork, again, it's the timeshare lawyers who drafted the contracts that you sign, and those contracts are pretty ironclad. And there's usually, I think, John, in my 20 years of law practice, I have gotten 2 companies to take back their timeshares.
Yeah, I've had one.
So
and that one was only because I was getting the person qualified for Medicaid benefits, and I threatened the timeshare people that if they didn't agree to just take the timeshare back, that I was going to relinquish it to the state Medicaid program.
Right, because that timeshare does have a value, that if a person is seeking Medicaid benefits, that can disrupt that. But yeah, that was one of mine as well, John, so it took that extreme of a situation. So just don't sign the contracts. Don't take the money to go to that state dinner meeting thinking that you will resist the sales pitch. Maybe you will. But if you don't, you have just signed yourself up for a ball and chain that is stuck with you forever.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So kind of moving on here, I know one that you mentioned this morning, both of us having gone out and gotten our fitness on.
That's right.
Don't sit around.
Yeah. So that's another problem. Now, we're not lawyers. We can't solve that particular problem, but the inactivity, your physical inactivity, being sedentary. Often what I do here in my law office is a lady, a wife, who's trying to take care of her husband. And she says, we've been through rehab. He's had some issues. When he's in the hospital or rehab, he does the little exercises they tell him to do. But as soon as he gets home, he just sits in that chair.
That's right.
He doesn't get up to go to the mailbox. He doesn't do anything. And it's just a cycle. And in a few months' time, he's had other issues. So many of the health issues that we see coming in, obviously many of them, we age, our bodies break down, we die. That's the circle of life.
It is. Are you going to sing the song?
No. But, I remember one time I went to Mount Vernon, where George Washington lived, and, all the bedrooms are upstairs. And there was a high school kid on the tour, and he asked the tour guide, did George and Martha go upstairs and live up here the whole time? Where did they stay when they couldn't climb the stairs? And the guide, I thought, gave a great answer. And she said, back in the 1700s, you lived an active life, till almost the grave.
That's right.
If you wanted to go to the bathroom, you had to walk yourself outside to go to the outhouse. If you wanted peaches, you had to go out to the orchard and pick them. If you wanted to go somewhere or see somebody, you were often walking.
That's right.
So don't just sit around, be as active as you can be, so that you can keep as much independence and autonomy and, put off those health issues as long as you can, because that, frankly, is the number one reason people in our office.
Yeah, people are coming to our office because somebody cannot transfer themselves from one place to another. And that often is because of their body has physically deteriorated.
Yeah.
If you say, I don't want to go to a nursing home. That's fine. What are you physically doing to prevent that?
Right.
Are you are you working out? Are you doing squats? I mean, you don't have to be pumping out the weights.
Yeah, no, it's as simple as sitting in a chair and getting up and repeating 20 times.
Yeah.
In a dining room chair.
That's right. Within your limits, whatever those limits are. But I will tell you, I go to the gym every day, virtually every day of the week. And there are people in that gym that are 40 years older than I am, and they're busting it out.
Yeah.
And if they can do it, you can do it. So yeah, you want to keep your butt out of a nursing home? Work out, get busy, do some stuff. That's right. All right, we're going to take one more break here for a couple of commercials. We'll be back here in just a second. Takes me a second to reach over there with my left hand.
Oh, right, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, you didn't get. I was waiting. Okay, making sure.
Yeah, there are some people up there at the gym busting it out.
Mm-hmm. When I went to, I was at a gym in Wichita Falls,
mm-hmm.
and there was a lady who was, I'm sure her grandkids call her Meemaw.
Probably.
She was a silver-haired lady, and she had one of those sleds, and there was a 45-pound weight, and she was pushing it around the gym.
Yeah.
When you get older, it's not about being, physically attractive. Your peak attractiveness has probably passed.
You're not gonna have six-pack abs, right?
But it's not about that anymore. It's about your health and your autonomy and your ability to do things for yourself. So working out with a little bit of weights. They say weight resistance training is vitally important as you age, because you naturally lose so much of that. And I'm not a certified, personal trainer or any kind of, physical therapist or anything like that. But I think it's pretty common sense that we all know, the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's where it is.
Yeah. And there's no point where you can't start.
That's right. Just do something today, and then tomorrow just do a little bit more. That's all. That's the key to success right there.
My 92-year-old grandfather would get up in the morning, get his coffee. He would go to the gym right down the street from his house, and he would sit on the recumbent bike, the one that has a back and you sit on it and the pedals are out in front, and he'd pedal and he'd drink his coffee.
Probably see his friends. I bet he chatted.
And he chatted because you met him. and he's going to chat with anybody that's around. But it's a social activity. And notice I said 92, right? Yeah, that's because he was active, he was physical, he was doing that sort of stuff. He kept himself out of a nursing home in large part because he liked to do stuff. He worked in his garage. He had CB radios and 8-track players that he liked to tinker with, but it got him out of the house, down the hill to his garage where he could work on stuff. He'd go to the gym. He even when he really couldn't play golf, he would often go out to the golf course and walk with his friends and stuff like that. So there's just, again, do stuff. All right, we're back live in about 5 seconds. So appreciate all y'all watching. And here's our opening
question. Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Lisa Schollmeyer. I'm here with John Ross, and today we're kind of giving our list of just a random list. I mean, John, we could come up with a list of 100 things. We
really could. We could go on and on and on. But we just had a little bit of time, and we thought we'd throw out some that just struck us right off the top of the head.
So a list of things not to do if you want to enjoy a calm, peaceful, happily ever after retirement.
That's right. So you're not going to loan anybody any money.
You're not going to let the kids move in.
Nope. you're not going to buy a timeshare.
Yeah, see, many of you can check that box right now. You've already achieved one thing on the list.
That's right. And you're going to get out there and do some physical exercise and stay active and stay fit if you want to keep yourself out of a nursing home. And when it comes to nursing home, if I will probably pluck my eyeballs out at some point in time, because I will cross a threshold. And this threshold will be the 8 millionth or 9 millionth, I don't know how many it's going to take before I break, person in my office bawling their eyes out. And here's what they're saying. But they made me promise not to put them in a nursing home.
Yes. Typically this comes from a distraught wife whose husband has whatever physical or cognitive incapacities, which has made it virtually impossible for the little wife to take care of her strapping husband.
And vice versa. When the wife is wandering out in the middle of the night, sometimes becoming aggressive, violent,
yes.
More than the husband can handle.
Yeah.
Same thing with the kids. But for whatever reason, that person in what has got to be one of the most self-involved jerk moves I can possibly think of, told their family, whatever you
extracted the promise.
Extracted the promise. Yeah. Promise me that you will never put me in a nursing home.
Okay. And the reality is, I haven't run across too many families. I can't say none, but the 99% of the families never ever want to utilize a nursing home anyway. They are trying to avoid that to the absolute nth degree of their ability.
Yeah, your family doesn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
They're not in a hurry. Most of them.
Yeah.
There's a few.
So really the promise of, promise me you'll never put me in a nursing home was easy for the family to give, because oh, Mom, I would never do that. You can live with me, or you can. And I've had many, many adult children who have carried out that, where they did have the parent move in with them and care for the parent right up until the point they couldn't.
Yeah, and I've had those caregivers, that daughter whose husband left them, whose financial situation cratered because they went from 2 incomes to 1 because they were trying to keep that promise.
Yeah, and they have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, or a 18-year-old and a 20-year-old.
And the reason, when you take something like Alzheimer's, the reason that Alzheimer's has a 15-year life expectancy, but the spouse of somebody with Alzheimer's only has a 3-year life expectancy, that's because of this. It's so hard being that caregiver. It's so stressful that it often kills the person. So I just want you to think to yourself, if you turn around to your husband, to your wife, to your child, whatever, but if you turn around to that husband or wife and you say, hey, promise me right now, promise me that you'll never put me in a nursing home, you have signed their death warrant.
Well, you're passionate about this.
I just might be. Now, again, that doesn't mean they're not going to try.
Right. And so we work with families all the time and trying to get as much support and resources into the home where that senior wants to be. But sometimes the resources that are available are simply not enough. And, our sponsors on the show, Reunion Plaza, Heritage Plaza, they wouldn't be in business if there wasn't a need for their services.
That's right.
So, the issue here is, if you've given that promise that you would never put your spouse or your parent or whatever in a facility, and it gets to a point where their care needs and health needs cannot be met in the home, you need to realize that you are the best care manager that they have. And if the environment needs to be that skilled nursing facility, then, that's a move that just has to be made. Again, usually, John, that family is at the very tip end of their rope by the time we're having this conversation.
That's right.
So it's not like, well, mom's just fine and she's on a bus tour in, Maine and Vermont. But I was just wondering, when could I put her in nursing home?
Right. Yeah.
We don't ever have that conversation.
No. And so again, we want to give you solutions. Hey, maybe you don't want to go to a nursing home. Maybe you're very passionate about that. Okay, that's fine. But just turning to your spouse or child and making them promise is not doing anybody any good. How about instead you actually figure out how you're going to accomplish that?
Right. So, for instance, that could be, if you're at a certain age and stage, maybe that sell your home and, reduce your expenditures to where that you have a larger savings, that could pay for care in the home.
Right.
That's what you need.
Yeah. Buy long-term care insurance if you're in your late 50s. While it's still affordable. Is that going to cost money? Yes. Absolutely. But if you're passionate about this, then maybe that's going to be appropriate for you. Visit with an elder law attorney. I know that sounds self-serving, but we can identify early on, particularly, what your financial situation is going to look like when the long-term care time comes. We can identify and spot problems way before they happen. And we can put plans in place that will address those, solve those problems on the front end. Get you some
resources to stay home.
And then in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, whenever it is, and you're now facing that long-term care situation, you've already way in advance, you've addressed all those issues. You've got the right paperwork in place. You've protected your assets. And now maybe you do have the resources so that you're not just burdening the family, but you're out there with veteran benefits and Medicaid services and long-term care insurance, plenty of cash savings, whatever the deal is. But you've made the promise, right? Yeah. Instead of making them promise not to put you in a nursing home, you've made the promise, hey, I'm going to do everything I can so that I don't have to go to a nursing home unless it's just an absolute extreme situation.
Yeah, and really, John, this thought just struck me.
Let's hear it.
In order to accomplish this point, which is our 7th point today,
okay,
it would be best to heed our advice on all the previous points. So, if you don't want to go to a nursing home, well, then stay active and do your part to make sure your body will be active and last you as long as possible in an independent way. Don't loan your money out expecting someone to give it back to you, because you might need it for your long-term care. Don't entangle yourself in business deals like timeshares
that are never going to go away.
It's just going to cost you money. Just on and on. So
that's right. All right. Well, you've reached the end of another edition of Aging Insight, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks, because again, we will not be here next weekend. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you're listening on the radio, you can go back and check it out on Facebook. And thanks to all our Facebook viewers for watching today. We'll see y'all next weekend.
Bye-bye.
And goodbye to all of y'all as well.